Hi, I'm Utsav, a behavior researcher by training and a slow traveler by passion. Postcards from Nowhere is a travel podcast where I condense a decade of travel experiences and explore not just the where, but also the why and how to travel. My stories emerged from slow traveling the less explored parts of the world: Bosnia and Herzegovina, Armenia, Uzbekistan, and even China. At the end of each story, I give practical tips and new ideas about how to travel better. This week, in the 14th episode of the series Ireland Untravelled, we discover an ancient language unlike any other, its deep, fascinating connection with trees, and the need for us to constantly return to nature. 1920, the office of Lord Reading, British Viceroy of India. Colonel Charles Howard Bury was preparing for a tough conversation with the Viceroy. The Colonel represented the British Secretary of State and was aiming to persuade him for allowing a unique mission. The 1856 Great Trigonometric Survey was able to calculate that the highest peak in the world was not Kanchenjunga, but the somewhat unnoticed Peak 15, measured to be 29,002 feet high. Colonel Howard Bury was on a diplomatic mission and was nervous for good reason. The previous administration had refused such an expedition on the grounds that British imperial policy did not recommend it. But the colonel was a sharp man and was able to persuade the Viceroy. He carved out an approach route starting at Sikkim, obtained a permit from the Dalai Lama to continue further into Tibet before attempting to reach Peak 15. As you would have guessed by now, Peak 15 was Mount Everest. In 1921, at the behest of Sir Francis Younghusband, who was the president of the Royal Geographic Society, Howard Bury successfully paved the way for the Mount Everest reconnaissance expedition. During this journey, Howard Bury found many footprints at high altitude. These were not human, but seemed to belong to a large animal. He felt that the tracks were probably caused by a large, loping grey wolf. The Sherpas who accompanied him had a different explanation. They believed that the tracks belonged to a Mech Kangmi, meaning filthy snowman. It was at this time that Henry Newman of the Statesman in Calcutta obtained descriptions from the expedition's porters on their return to Darjeeling. There is a possibility that Newman mistranslated Mech Kangmi as abominable snowman, and thus the phrase abominable snowman came into existence. Someone we know as Bigfoot or Yeti. Meanwhile, the success of the expedition saw Howard Bury being awarded the 1922 Founders Gold Medal at the Royal Geographic Society. He became a public figure and went back to Britain and became a politician. For a while, he lived in the Charleville estate, bordering the town of Tullamore in Ireland, which was owned by the Bury family. The castle's main attraction was the king oak, a tree on its grounds. Descended from the ancient oak forests that were once commonplace in Ireland, the tree is estimated to be around 400 to 800 years old. It's considered to be one of the oldest trees in Ireland, with the trunk having the girth of 8.29 meters. A superstition associated with the tree says that if one of its branches should fall, a member of the Bury family will die. Call it fate or coincidence, but in 1963, shortly after the tree was struck by lightning, which split its main trunk, Charles Howard Bury passed away. Ireland and its trees have a unique connection, which gave rise to one of the most unique languages in the world. The language is known as Ogham and was probably first created as a cryptic alphabet, designed by the Irish so as not to be understood by those with the knowledge of the Latin alphabet. The alphabet was created by Irish scholars or druids for political, military, or religious reasons to provide a secret means of communication in opposition to the authorities of Roman Britain. The Roman Empire, which then ruled over neighboring southern Britain, represented a very real threat of invasion to Ireland, which may have acted as the spur to the creation of the alphabet. How often do we encounter a language that has been created solely for secret communication? But that is not even the most unique aspect of Ogham. What if I told you that the language was read from bottom up? And the fact that all the letters are made up of a combination of straight lines, which look like the trunks of trees and their branches? In the southern Irish province of Munster, one finds a few hundred stone monuments which are inscribed with the Ogham. The alphabet itself originally comprised one group of vowels and 3 groups of consonants. Each group contained 5 letters, bringing the total number of letters in the alphabet to 20. The letters themselves were made up of 1 to 5 lines, stemming from or crossing a central line or axis, usually the edge of a standing stone. The language was inspired by the old-growth forests of Ireland, to which the king oak at the Charleville Castle belongs. Each letter corresponds to a certain tree and, as per ancient Celtic lore, connotes certain values. For example, the alphabet A is known as Elam, associated with the tall elm tree, known for perspective and height. C is for Call, associated with the hazel tree, and stood for wisdom, creativity, and knowledge. D is for Dar, associated with the oak tree, which represents strength, resilience, and self-confidence. The ancient Celtics saw it as a great tree for enhancing inner strength, especially when you have experienced a great loss in life. So why did the Celtics associate certain values to trees? And why did they fashion their alphabets based on shape of trees and their branches? Did they know something about the natural world that we have not figured out or are only figuring it out now? In 2015, Peter Wolleben, a German forester, published a best-selling book titled The Hidden Life of Trees: What They Feel, How They Communicate, Discoveries from a Secret World. Using scientific research and assigning anthropomorphic value to trees, he brings to the non-academic reader the hidden language of trees. They communicate through electrical signals transmitted through a fungal network in their roots, use scents to warn other trees about predators, and continue to provide nutrients to fellow trees which have been cut down. Researcher Suzanne Simard at the University of British Columbia coined the term Wood Wide Web. We will never know for sure if the Celtics had such an intimate understanding of trees, but we can be sure of one thing. We need to frequently disconnect from the World Wide Web and immerse ourselves in the Wood Wide Web, which lives and breathes right under the ground we walk upon.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Utsav Memory on Twitter and YVTravel42 on Instagram.